We are in Champions League, man.
That was my next
Dilly din, dilly dong, come on.
Encara Messi, 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 gol, 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 gol.
Into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it!
I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
This is the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast with Gary Curneen.
Hello, welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. My name is Gary Curneen. This is the 6th episode for the Culture Podcast that we are bringing to you alongside WorldStrides Excel. WorldStrides are the industry leader in international soccer tours with over 15 years experience of tours for a wide range of coaches and teams. They offer high level quality support, financial assistance, liability coverage, hassle-free travel. And we're also working alongside WorldStrides to put together the first modern soccer coach education tour to Barcelona on February 6th to February 12th. So we plan on visiting academies, watch some sessions, attend coach education workshops, and then take in a professional game or two. So really excited about connecting with a group of coaches who want to sample Spanish culture alongside myself. So that'll be a lot of fun. We've got more information about that coming to you very, very soon. So for this podcast, we are joined by Stephen Constantine. A really, really unique story. He was born in London and played professionally in the US. Nothing strange there, but then it takes a little bit of a twist. He then became the Nepal national team coach, the Malawi national team coach, Sudan national team coach, Rwanda national team coach. He had spells at Millwall and in the Cypriot League. And then he had 2 spells and is currently the Indian national team coach, where he's made huge strides. He was recently named Sports Illustrated Coach of the Year in India. So an absolutely phenomenal story. I read his book before doing this podcast, From Delhi to the Den. And then I thought, where do I start with asking this man questions? Unbelievable story. We talk about the challenges of working in some of the toughest environments in world football, and then how do you adapt to a life culture but then try to change a football culture at the same time. We ask if coaches have it easier than we think we do, and also if you have ever complained about anything as a coach, you need to listen to this here. It is really, really inspiring. His journey, his passion, and his views on the game and coach education. He's a FIFA instructor as well, so his views on coach education are unbelievable. So you're going to enjoy this big time. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always, on Twitter, at Gary Curneen, Instagram, at Gary Curneen. Shoot me an email, gary@modernsoccercoach.com. Love to hear your thoughts. Always appreciate your feedback. Please give it a rating on the iTunes page. Please help spread the word. Here's Stephen, and enjoy. Stephen, thanks so much for joining me this evening in your time, Indian time, for the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be on your show, Gary. Thanks for inviting me.
We put these culture podcasts together, and this is the ultimate in culture with yourself. So we always start the culture podcast with a similar question. What is your football philosophy, and how or where did it come about?
Look, I think you don't wake up saying that I have a philosophy. I think you have ideas on how you want the game to be played, and it evolves over the years. And I've been fortunate enough to be doing this for the last 25 years in quite a few different countries. And philosophy, I want to win. I want players to play with everything they have. I want passion. I want determination. All those cliche words that we like to use as coaches. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what philosophy you have. At the end of the day, it's about the result. At my level, anyway. If we're talking about youth players and stuff like that, it's, for me, age groups it's always about the development. And I'm not interested in winning the under 15 league or the under 10 six-a-side. How many players are you going to put in the under 12s, or how many players are you going to put in the reserves, or how many players are you going to put in the senior team? And for me, I'm very, very much in favour of the youth coach. I don't think they get the respect that they deserve. But then I'm going off the original question, I think. So.
Yeah, so you're not a youth coach. In your line of, I suppose, in your business, it's winning tomorrow that counts.
Well, yeah. I mean, most of my jobs have been to come in and either steady the ship so we don't get relegated, or we're in the mire, get us out. I maybe I have the knack to improve fortunes of teams that I've coached.
You open your book with the reality of your nomadic lifestyle, I suppose, and you say that you've always lived that way growing up, going to 8 schools, moving continents, living in Cyprus at a tough time. Has that experience as a child, has that played a big role in how you view the coaching journey?
That's a really good question. I think your upbringing, your background does lay the foundations and defines who you are as a person. I think I'm able to deal with just about anything you can throw at me, because I've had to deal with it in my personal life. Does that make me a better coach? I think it makes me more empathetic. I think I'm able to reach players because they know what I've been through. I can relate to players just about anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter the colour of their skin either. Hardship is hardship. It doesn't matter where you're from. And maybe that's part of what I am. Players play for me.
Chapter 1, I think it was chapter 1 and chapter 2, it's just how I'm fascinated by how people at the top approach or see football, not just tactically, but how they view the game. So many people, young coaches, view football as such a beautiful game and such this refreshing, great thing. But I think people who have been in the industry such a long time view it as a merciless business. It's a tough industry. Would you be more of seeing football as a grind, as a really, really difficult aspect of life?
I wouldn't change a single second of a single minute of the career that I've had, and I don't see it as a grind. I see it more as a privilege. I absolutely adore what I do. I don't consider it a grind. I consider it as it's something that I want to do. It's always what I've wanted to do, and it's always what I'm going to do as long as I have breath in me. So I don't see it as a grind. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it merciless? Yes. Are there plenty of idiots who talk a good game in the game? Yes. But that's part of it. You can't have everything that you want the way you want all the time. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Reading your bio before the book, your playing experience in America, I first of all I thought, that's the cushy NASL life in San Jose or somewhere nice and sunny. But again, picking up chapter whatever, pumping gas in LaGuardia in New York, and then selling flyers. Yeah.
It's freezing.
Selling flyers outside the subway station. I mean, it seems that you always find a way to get to do what you want to do. Is that a hallmark of your personality?
I think it is, Gary. I've always wanted to play, and then after that, it was always I was going to coach, and I have the same determination when it comes to my teams, whether it's national or club teams. I will find a way to win. I will find a way to get the players to respond to me. I will find a way, because I honestly feel that that particular job that I'm in, if I don't find a way, I'm not going to get another job.
So when you walk into a locker room and you have to instill that in players, I mean, getting that passion and that belief across, is that done with training? Is that where do you operate best? I suppose I'm asking. Is it on the training pitch? Is it in a meeting, 1-to-1?
I think it's all of those, Gary. I don't think you can walk into the room and come out with one sentence and everyone's going, oh, wow, that's it. This is the coach of the year and he's going to make it. I spend a lot of time with players, one-on-ones, in little groups. I spend a lot of time on the training pitch. I'll come back and do extra stuff with them if they want, or if I want them to. And obviously in team meetings, I think players are players. What does the player want? The player wants you to make him better. He wants you to make him better because he's going to get a better job, a better contract, a selection for the national team or whatever. So I believe with a player who has the right attitude, no matter who he is, I can make him a little bit better than he is. And I think instilling the belief in the players that I can make them better or I can help them is part of it. But I don't think it's one of those three things that you mentioned. I think it's all three and then some.
In contrast, just going back to the, finding a way, we just spoke before we started recording about coaches here today, especially in the US, who complain, and I've done this and probably still do it, complain about scholarship money or a piece of grass. The pitch isn't perfect, so we'll have a pop at the groundsman or something like that. Do you think that coaches complain too much around the world? Is it a frustration of yours when you interact with them?
Look, I remember the first time I took the Indian national team to train in 2002. And it was in Goa. Okay, Goa is a lovely beach resort, and they took me to this field, and it was a dirt field. Okay, lines barely visible. And I thought, okay, well, this is what they're playing on, so I'll coach on this because this is what they're playing on. We didn't have markers, so we ran across the road in the supermarket and we bought coloured plates and put stones on them so that the wind wouldn't blow the paper plates away. What I'm trying to say is that depending on where you are, you have to deal with those situations. You can find an excuse not to coach, or you can find an excuse to complain. But if you really want to coach, you'll find a way, and that's what I do.
This is a topic that I'm really interested in, because we're complaining today, Stephen, about coaches or about players, a group of players in the US or the UK that have it too easy. But in our development as a coaching community, are we going to be creative or resourceful or take risk whenever we breeze into a multi-million-dollar facility to educate ourselves on the game? Or surely having less resources would make us a better coach at some stage?
Look, I really honestly don't think that it's such a major issue, in that if you want to coach, you will find a way. If you don't want to coach, you will find an excuse. Look, I have been with national teams that we have not had 10 balls, but I need to coach that team. So I will. And I may not be happy, I may complain, I may this, I may that, but I will do the session and I will get what I want out of it. It's how many, and depending on, what level you are as a coach, but if you're at youth level and, there's dog poo on the pitch, we can't train here, the kids are going to get sick. Give me a break, get the shit off the pitch and get on with it. We have challenges in our life every day. That's not a challenge. The challenge is your child is sick and there's nothing you can do about it. That's a challenge. Not we don't have enough markers or we don't have enough balls. Come on. If you want to coach the session, if you want to make those kids that you are happy, then get out there and find a way. This is what it's about. Coaching, one of the first things they tell you is you got to be adaptable. You got to change. You got to be in a position to decide what is right, what is wrong, what can we do, what can't we do, and these little problems that you guys have in America and in England and in parts of Europe. Give me a break. That's not a problem.
Yeah, can you talk about your youth, or as a young coach, your experience? I thought this was a great story, your experience with Inter Milan's warm-up.
I will never forget that. I use it a lot in my FIFA courses. We talk about, watching other coaches, and that was an absolute classic example where I went and watched Inter Milan train. It was the warm-up before the game against our senior team. I was coaching the Apollon under-21s at the time. And so I wrote down everything that they did. And I said, well, this is great. I mean, what a great warm-up. I'll use this on the weekend with the under-21s. We were down 2-0 after about 15 minutes, and we lost 4-0. And coming back on the team bus, one of the lads said, yeah, coach, did you go to the Inter Milan game? I said, yeah. How good was it? He goes, yeah. He said, did you see the warm-up? I said, yeah, brilliant. He said, that's the warm-up you gave us, wasn't it? I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, but we're not Inter Milan. We don't have Dennis Bergkamp or Souza or some of these boys that were playing. And it was such a big lesson. And how I describe the lesson is, you can go and watch any coach you want, Mourinho, Guardiola, these guys, but do you know why they are doing the session they are doing? Do you know what the ins and outs of the session are? And finally, do you have the quality of players that they have to perform the session the way you've just seen it? And the answer is no. So unless you have access to the coach to say, okay, why are you doing that session? He can explain the session to you. But then you've got to think about, well, do you have the quality of players that he has? And you probably don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. So, take from coaches, but you have to water it down to the level of the players that you have. And for me, that was a great lesson, because I gave it exactly as Inter Milan did it, exactly. And the boys were exhausted after the warm-up, and like I said, we were down 2-0 after 15 minutes. So it was a big lesson.
I think it's just a great story, because again, a big issue today, there's just so much access we have to content with what teams are doing, but not a lot of access to context, is there?
Well, there's so many magazines and websites, and your session can be this, and you see like a guy who's coaching under 12s do copy the session that Manchester City were doing, and wonder why he doesn't get the result. You have to pitch it to the level of your players, and of course you have to understand exactly why you're doing it.
When you got to India, I heard you say your average age was 30, 31?
About 31, 32, yeah.
Okay, that would be too old for a domestic league team, but experience is such an important criteria at international level. So what is the perfect age profile for an international side?
I don't know if you can say it's 25 or 31 or 26, but of course you need experienced players, and I really don't care how old they are, as long as they're able to do the work that we need them to do. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in giving the youngsters a chance, but only if they're good enough. In India, the team had been in a rut for some time. They were ranked 173. They had won too many games previous to when I went, and it needed changing. So I did.
The lack of regular contact time would seem for most coaches as the biggest challenge. Is it hard to develop a style of play without having day-to-day access?
It's harder, but I also run the under-23 side physically. In fact, I'm in camp now with the under-23s. And so that makes it a little bit easier for me, because from 23s they will come to the senior side, hopefully. Well, actually 11 of them are in the senior side. I need it, I think, more than anything else, more than they do, because it keeps me quite busy. I mean, I miss the day-to-day coaching, I miss the day-to-day banter and what have you at club level. So I'll take 2 or 3 jobs or 4 jobs if I have to keep me busy. I just love doing what I'm doing.
Interested in just getting your thoughts on in approaching a culture where, as coaches, we always seem to preach long term, either to the fans or for their bosses, to try and get everyone, patience. And it sounds like you want to make an immediate impact, and you don't typically stay. Your career is not staying in jobs 5 to 10 years. So do you do a long term presentation, or is everything right? We've got to win tomorrow and let's get the show on the road.
No, actually, Gary, I would say to you the following. When I take a job, my attitude is that I'm going to be there for the rest of my life. Okay? It doesn't happen. Usually, the lifespan of an international manager, I believe, is 9 months. I'm here in India now almost 4 years. Club level, I think it's 12 months on average. I've been at clubs for 2 years and a year here and there. But look, you go into a club that have problems, and some of the jobs have been 6-month contracts because the team is going to get relegated, and can you help us get out? So I have to make an immediate impact. But when I came to India, for me it was, look, I'm not going to win straight away, and I didn't. But in the last year, we've won, the last 3 years, we've won 3 international trophies and qualified for a major event. But that first year, we lost 7 out of 8 games. But you obviously need the backing of the people that are hiring you, and an understanding of, well, we were in this position. How are we going to get to this position? Well, you're not going to do that overnight. So there needs to be a little bit of patience. But I don't always want to leave the situation where I am, but sometimes I don't have choice. In Sudan, I didn't have much choice. I had to leave. No, I think going into a club or into an organization, you have to think of the bigger picture. But the reason they're calling you is because they have a problem, and you have to find the problem and fix it. And you're going to get X amount of time, but you have to kind of make things happen quite quickly.
I imagine, Sudan, Rwanda, India, I imagine there's a lot of noise surrounding these teams in terms of the federation. And you tell a couple of stories in the book about dealing with executives or dealing with people on top of the federation. And is that a bigger challenge than the tactical side, getting the environment right?
Yeah, well, I think nowadays you've got to manage up and make sure the president, the vice president, the general secretary, that they are understanding of what it is you're trying to do, that they understand the difficulties. They obviously do, otherwise they wouldn't have sacked the previous coach and hired you. But it's doable. It's doable if you accept the culture and how people learn and show the respect for the country, the people. I mean, it took me about a week to get the Sudanese players to do ice baths. And, after training, and we're talking 40-something degrees. Guys, we need to go in the ice bath because recovery, blah, blah, blah. Oh no, coach, we don't do that. But why not? Anyway, long story short, after a week we got them in. They loved it. One day we couldn't find any ice in Khartoum, in the blocks that we were looking for. That they didn't have any, and the players were complaining, "Coach, where's the ice? Where's the ice?" So it comes from you. You create the atmosphere in the club as the coach. You create the environment as much as you possibly can. I want it to be a learning environment. I want people to improve, to get better, and that goes for my coaches and the staff.
Yeah, that learning or that education, is it, going to your first training camp with India, you dealt with the players were overfed during the lunch break. Is it almost educating a community or a nation on what it takes to get to the next level now, rather than just a group of players?
Look, I think when I walked into the building in India, the All India Football House in Delhi, I asked everybody in the building, it was about 58 people, to come down to the main meeting area, and I introduced myself as the national coach, and I told them that the jobs that they do on a daily basis is as important as the job I do. The only difference is that I'm in the front line, as it were, but I can't do my job unless they do their job. I wanted to thank them and wish them luck in my tenure here. And I think it's not a one-man band. It's never going to be a one-man band if you're doing it properly. And you need to get people to understand what it is you're trying to do. Of course, I'm there to help India first and foremost, but I can't do that without their help. That's kind of how I approached that particular position.
With your immediate support staff, like so many coaches today, when Pep takes his job, he comes with the team. Jose, up until now, comes with a team. How do you hire, or how do you find your support, your assistant coach? How do you go through that process?
I would say that in 90% of my jobs, I will find the assistant coach from the locality. Either he's from that country, from that city, from that club, because I feel that they have their finger on the pulse, as it were. They obviously know the club better than I do at that moment in time. And if they are somebody that is willing to work with me, then, that's fine. I have amazing backroom staff at the moment. I would say I have a sports science coach from Australia. I have a Brazilian goalkeeping coach. I have one of the best physiotherapists that I ever worked with, who is from India. We have an analysis guy from Norway, a rehab guy from Australia, and a number of other Indian staff. My assistant coach is Indian, who played for me for 3 years. So I am quite open to working with people, provided they are in line with what I need with the team. I believe chemistry more than ability, if that makes sense. So if somebody's really, really good at a job, but he's just not the type that I'm able to work with, I would rather take somebody who has that chemistry, and it's very important for me, the chemistry and the character of the person that I work with. They need to be like-minded. They need to be teachers. They need to be able to impart their knowledge. Even when I'm not there, the philosophy is the same. So they can't go crying to the physiotherapist if the physiotherapist is saying the same thing that I'm saying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. How much have you, when you go to these places, which a lot of us, even for a student to go travelling is extravagant. Some of the places you've been is just amazing. How much do you have to change, or how much have you changed as you've, throughout your coaching journey?
Look, Gary, I think I have been very fortunate, as you said, to have been to some unbelievable places, both good and bad. but the one common thing is football. Okay, and when somebody calls me to come and come into their country and help their football team, I'm only going there with my football. I'm not going there to change their culture. I have to accept the culture. So in Sudan, they prayed 5 times a day, and one of those times was during Ramadan. Now, whether I like it or not, the boys were not going to eat or drink anything from sun up to sundown. How do I deal with that? Well, I fasted with them, just so you know, and put myself in their shoes and their situation. And that's what I try to do. I mean, my wife calls me a chameleon because she thinks that I would change the color of my skin or something like that in order to be accepted in the particular country. And I pretty much would. I'm there for the football. I will help them as much as I can from the football perspective. But it's important that you understand where you are, who you're dealing with, how they learn, how they think, in order to give them the maximum. You're not there to change their culture. You're not there to tell them this is no good and this is rubbish and you can't do it like this and you can't do it like this, because they are doing it like this. They have been, and after you leave, they will be. But what they want you to do is to help them within their environment get better. And I believe I do that.
Yeah, so many changes. I can just imagine. There's obviously the culture changes off the field. There's the tactical culture. The player management, the individual player management, I imagine would also be different. Where you said that in Nepal the players stood up whenever you walked in the locker room, but at the Millwall Academy they just sat on their phones. Is there a big difference everywhere you go with how that locker room interacts or how players interact with coaches?
Yes, I think every country has their own little quirkiness, if that's the right word. You go to Sudan and it's different. You can't point your finger in someone's face in Sudan and expect to keep your finger. You have to be mindful. You can't be screaming and shouting. And I'm quite a passionate person in especially when I'm coaching. But you have to be mindful of what you say and how you say, and that sometimes gets me into trouble. But I just have this passion for the game, and I want things to be done right, and I will try to get players to do things the right way. But you do have to be careful. Sometimes how you say things and the way you say things, and every culture is or every country is different.
I didn't know how big India was until I read you. Like, I couldn't believe 1.3 billion people in India. So how do you deal with the pressure that there brings? Is there a lot of pressure, do you feel, with even that first game? You said lost 7 out of 8. Do you feel the burden of 1.3 billion, or is that just a number at the end of the day?
Look, I think as a person, I want to succeed in everything that I do. I don't think I'm any different from anybody else. When you lose 7 out of 8. You are starting to think, is this going to work? But you know what? It will work because I've done it. I've done it for years, and it does work. And you give me a bit of time. We took a team. We dismantled the team. Those qualifiers, those 7 games were qualifiers for the World Cup. And to be honest, we were never going to go to the World Cup. But our target was the Asian Cup, and they were joint qualifiers. So it was important that we managed to get to the playoffs, which we did. But look, I believe in what I do, and I believe my method has been successful. So do I feel the pressure? No. Look, I can't say that. Look, I'm not afraid to lose my job. Okay, although I'm not rich and I haven't had those multi-million dollar contracts, I will do to the best of my ability, and I will work 24/7 to improve the situation at any club or national association that I'm with. And if you don't like it, then okay, you can let me go. But today I haven't been fired yet, so I've been pushed but not fired. But look, I think you really do have to be able to take the comments. You know, when you're losing, no one likes to be losing, and it can get nasty sometimes. But like I said, I believe in what I do, and I will get it right. And touch wood, I've been able to do that.
Yeah, you can hear the. I mean, it comes across. Your work screams work ethic and just finding a way. But when you talk to you or listen to you, you talk about your journey and talk about football. You can hear the passion and belief you have in it. Just wondering how you kind of, how do you recharge a bat? Is there a stage where you have a break? Do you play golf? Do you go for walks? What do you do just to kind of balance that out?
Well, I do two things. I play NFL Madden on the PlayStation 4.
Brilliant.
Which is brilliant. I love American football. I think that is probably the most tactical sport in the world. Although I'm not particularly good at the game, but I love playing it, and that's pretty much what I do. I mean, I'm always watching a game, or wanting to watch a game, or going to watch a game. It's the big loss for me is not spending enough time with the family. That I would like to do more of that, but my big passion is football.
When you're, the gains that you've made through India, unbelievable. The scouting, I would imagine that scouting in that region would be fairly difficult, just on the technology side, getting access to the right information, getting access to the vastness of the region as well. Is that a challenge? Is scouting a challenge?
Yeah, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have about 5 or 6 scouts that we have watching players in the Indian leagues. We watch the Santos Trophy, which is a state league. We try to watch as much football as we possibly can, and as you said, it's not easy. But thankfully, I have quite a few former players that used to play for me. They know the type of player that I want, and my assistant coach is a legend. He played 20 years for the Indian national team, so he has his connections as well, and he's absolutely brilliant for me. So, Europe fits into India, so we should have more. I do scouting workshops in India where I go to different states and introduce them to the process of identifying players. What do we want? What kind of player do we want? And that's taken off, actually. So we've been to 3 or 4 states. There's about 25 more to go to. But it's a challenge. But hey, that's why I'm here.
You give a lot back to the coaching community. Very accommodating with your time. Would you urge coaches, young coaches today, especially those in England, would you urge them to travel and get abroad?
Absolutely, and I mean there are many coaches, many more coaches out there than there were when I first started, and I think going outside of your comfort zone, working in conditions that you would never ever see in your life back home, are so important. You come back to England and you appreciate so much more than you do now if you haven't been out. And I also think you can learn a great deal. I mean, we may have invented the game, but I'm telling you that there are 211 countries playing football now, and everyone has their own ideas and their own opinions on how the game be played and who should play and who shouldn't play. And it's such a huge industry, and the more you go out, the more you learn. And I think having gone out has made me a better coach, better person. I don't think had I stayed back in England, I would have had the adventures and the career, the experience or the knowledge that I have, having done what I've done so far. So if you get a chance to go, and I don't mean go on a 6-week camp to America and coach under 8s, that doesn't count. Go to Africa, come to Asia, get in amongst it, and then when you get back, you will have a much better appreciation of where you are, where you come from.
What does the world think of English coaches? Is the perception changing with the Premier League or World Cup success, or is it something we don't really need to worry about?
Can you tell me how many English coaches are out there?
Yeah, not a lot.
I think that answers your question.
Yeah. And do you find that where you go, do you find a general cautiousness or wariness, or?
Well, I generally have to come up against a Spanish guy who spent 5 minutes in the Barcelona academy with the under-12s, gets a national team job somewhere or a big club job because he was in the Barcelona academy, or because Spain won everything in sight, they'll sign a Spanish coach or a Portuguese coach or a German coach. I think the Euros and the World Cup has an effect on that because, the teams outside think that if they get a German coach, they're going to play like Germans. If they get a Dutch coach, they're going to play like the Dutch. And what they forget is that you don't have those kind of players. You don't have that philosophy from the grassroots going up. So you are never going to get an African team play like Holland, because they're not set up that way. So again, I think it's more about getting somebody who can get the best out of the country, the culture, the players that you're in, and be he English, German, or Italian, it shouldn't make a difference. But having a successful World Cup. Teams, countries around the world, clubs around the world tend to go for, they become flavour of the month, shall we say.
You mentioned in your book as well about the danger of young kids trying to develop too quickly in their coaching journey, skipping important steps, that time on the grass. It's important.
Yes, you can say the same for coaches. I'm really not in favour of coaches being fast-tracked because they had a 10 or 15-year career as a player. Most people spend 12 to 14 years in school. They go to universities and what have you. They're not qualified as professors after that, are they? And for players, I think, you can't put the emphasis on winning at 8 or 9 or 10. It's got to be about having them love the game. I think the best coaches in the world have got to be the youth coaches, because they're the ones that are going to get the kid to fall in love with the game. And once they're in love with the game, it's the best game in the world. They can't go anywhere else after that. So it's so important. But a lot of especially in the US, it seems to be all about winning and winning the under 10s and winning the under 11s and winning the under 12s. But I just think that you're missing the point. At that age group, it doesn't matter. What matters is the kid falls in love with the game. He goes to the next level. which is maybe the under 12s and then the under 14s, and he has a complete foundation of how the game should be played by the time he's 15, 16, and that's when you start thinking about, well, now we've got to change a little bit because it is about winning if I want to be a professional or go to college, you know.
Last one for you. When you met your wife, she asked you about how much you love football, and I'm going to read this, what your response was. If there's a game on TV, I'll watch it. If there's a game within 1,000 miles that I want to see, I will. If there's a coaching course anywhere in the world that will benefit my career, I'm there. And if there's a job I want to take, I will take it, even in Mongolia. Again, blew me away. How does she view this lifestyle? Does she see it as, oh, it's a new place, it's an adventure, I enjoy travelling, or does she kind of suffer through the life of a coach as well?
Well, look, and I must add there that I did get offered the Mongolia national team job. And I rang her up and I said, Lucy, you're never going to guess what's happened. What's that? I said, we've been offered the job in Mongolia. She goes to me, no way. I said, yes, Ulaanbaatar. It's a great offer. And she goes, Stephen, we have a 12-month-old daughter. It's freezing cold. It's 6 months. It's dark. It's 6 months. It's light. Please tell me you haven't accepted. I had by that time already agreed to go to Nepal, but my wife is an absolute saint. She got up and left the table after I said that, and I was trying to think of if there was a back door. Because she said she was going to the toilet, but I wasn't quite sure. But lucky for me, she came back, and she is. This is what you want to do. This is your career. This is what you're good at. I'm 100% behind you, and she has been to this day. And 23 years. In June, I'm going to have to renegotiate a contract next year. It'll be 24. So, see if I can get her to sign for a few more years yet. But no, she's been absolutely first class. I could not have asked for a better person to share my life with.
Brilliant. Stephen, thank you. Not just for this interview, but again, everything you do in the coaching community. Your journey and your message is just so inspirational, and I urge coaches. The coaches, even as college coaches now start up their pre-season, they look for tactics, and the next session they should go through the season reading your book, because it just puts things so much in perspective, and it's almost a kickstarter for the tenacity and determination you need as a coach to solve every problem. So I'm glad I read it, and I'll definitely encourage every coach to do the same. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
Thanks again, Stephen. We'll talk soon. All the best.
Thanks so much to Stephen for his time and his insight there. I loved every minute of that chat. I could listen to him all day. Just the passion that he shares his philosophy with, and his journey, and his ability to find a way. As he says, if you want something done, you find a way. If you just don't want it done, you find an excuse, whether that's a training session with a bad pitch, or if that's not access to certain facilities that you need, or the certain type of player you require. You just get it done. And sometimes it's as simple as that. How much time do we spend complaining as coaches about things that we don't have any control over, or things that aren't really that bad? And I know from personal experience, I've wasted hours and hours and hours doing that, probably over the last year, 2 years, 3 years. So it's something that maybe as a self-reflection exercise that you try and get out of yourself, that maybe I am spending too much time complaining, and maybe we use that energy into other areas. So I would urge every coach to get his book, From Delhi to the Den, and after every chapter I was just shaking my head. The challenges that we think we have aren't really challenges. Like, they're not even close to the experiences that Stephen's dealt with different national teams and different cultures, different federations, different bosses, different ways of finding opportunities. the struggles that he faces and his attitude and his beliefs in getting through those struggles, absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't put the book down as soon as I read it. I enjoyed every page of it. Majority of them I was just shaking my head, and I just loved it. So do yourself a favour, even if you're starting the season up. It's a great way to just put life in perspective and also inspire you to go outside your comfort zone. And maybe what we perceive our comfort zone to be is not really a comfort zone at all. You know, we say every day, we tell our players, get outside your comfort zone, but it's only when you read Stephen's story you kind of puts it in perspective, what we could be doing. Maybe we should travel a bit more, maybe we should expose ourselves to bigger challenges, and try to become more as coach and as people and all that good stuff. So thanks so much for listening. We'd love to hear your views on that podcast. As always, on Twitter at Gary Curneen, on Instagram at Gary Curneen. Please, before you shoot off, give it a rating on the iTunes page, post it on social media, help us spread the word of the podcast. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. I will speak to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. For more coaching topics, sessions, and resources, head on over to Coach Curneen on Facebook or visit the website at www.modernsoccercoach.com.